Whatever, exit wounds. Taj and Owen die and it's sad. That's about the only remarkable thing that happens in the episode, I think.
Yeah, this was a pretty unremarkable ending, especially with all the build-up about the brother.
Well, I don't agree. I thought it was great. My one problem with the episode is probably actually kind of similar to the finale we just talked about, even though it was great. I feel like there was a bit too much going on. I feel like some plot lines were resolved a bit unremarkably, too quickly. Like the Weevil. The Weevil subplot is kind of resolved by sort of a hand wave thing, just like, what hand, actually? I need a reminder of this, because I only watched this episode today. So they emerge from the sewers and they just pretty much get sent back there like 10 minutes later. And it seems like a very rushed way of dealing with them, handled too quickly. The whole episode to me, way too short, 48 minutes, needed to be a bit longer because I felt it was so rushed and it kept moving from plot point to plot point to plot point that I couldn't breathe, and some of the impactful moments were a bit lost on me. But overall, I really liked it. For one thing, I think John Hart is a fantastic character. I thought the episode dealt with a lot of strong concepts, emotions really well. I thought it was a very satisfying finale, even if I do think it was a bit too breathless.
I like Captain John, but I do feel like his character art was basically the same one in Buffy's, but they didn't give it enough time to breathe. Like, basically, he goes from, like, the bad boy to the enemy, but it just took 2 episodes of that instead of slow.
I mean, I actually thought his arc was the one that was probably handled with the most depth to it here. I mean, on the one hand, you can probably say that he's telling the truth when he's upset how Jack pays no attention to him. And I think it's a good twist to have him, not really the villain and under Gray's control the whole time. Because I think he's just too likable to be a villain, if I'm going to be honest. I think he's just a very good character.
About Gray being too likable because he's a plank of wood.
My only problem with Gray is that he's played by an absolutely terrible actor.
Exactly.
I do think if he was played by a better actor, he would be much better, because I do think his material on the page is actually pretty good. And I think John Barrowman does a fantastic job actually opposite him. I felt very emotional. I don't know, Gray, I don't know who they picked to play him, but he was just a complete plank of wood.
It seems like they were so fixated on getting someone who could believably sound like he's John Barrowman's brother in the accent, and not like actually delivering a good performance. You say the material's good, and Brianna says they have chemistry. I'm not even sure if I agree with that. I don't even know if I disagree with that, because it's rare that you find an acting performance that's so bad that, like, putting them opposite a better actor doesn't bring something good out of them. And, like, it's bad enough that I can't even tell if the material on the page is any good. I really can't tell.
I don't know, like, how attached I am to the idea of Jack having a brother that got, like, swept away and, like, kidnapped, whatever the hell, the whole, like, 9 yards, the whole shebang. I don't know how attached I am to that idea, but the way Jack acted in order to make that a possibility on screen, that I'm okay with. The way he acted with the person who played Gray, that I'm okay with. Gray himself and his whole backstory, it's a little iffy.
I'm so distracted by his performance that I'm like, that's all I can focus on.
Yeah, it's like, for me, I thought he was actually a very interesting character. Like, it was actually a very dark concept. I mean, his brother let him go. His brother didn't keep him safe, and because of that, he was tortured to the point of begging for death for an unknown amount of time. But it's like the performance is so unconvincing that I just can't get into it. It's like when he's shouting after Jack, I think, near the end, and he's just like, "Don't walk away from me." And I'm just like, he's like a crying baby or something. And I
guess it makes sense because he never really would have had any kind of opportunity to reach a sort of emotional maturity.
He comes off very immature about the whole thing.
I just still felt his performance was very wooden. I just couldn't believe the emotions from him. And that's the problem, because I do think actually Gray is a good character. It's a great character to bring into this finale, to give Jack some more development and to have him go through an emotional arc. And I really felt for Jack in this episode. So I do think the story worked. My only problem is really the performance.
I think at a certain point, I just wasn't paying attention, and someone has to explain this to me. There's a part where I think it's Yanto and Gwen, and like a bunch of guys in Grim Reaper outfits come out, and they
it was
and they just shoot all of them. What was that?
Got that even happened? I think it was like a time thing.
They don't react like it's
They don't
anything
know what it
special.
is. They look at it and they're just like, "What the hell is that?" And then they shoot it, and then they keep going, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's taken care of."
Is it something to do with the rift?
The rift? That's all I can say. I forgot that even happened. I remember it was real funky to just come up and it was like, Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
It was just like, stuff like this just happens in Cardiff sometimes. We just have to deal with it.
You know, find people murdering cosplayers in Cardiff all the time. You're legally allowed to murder a cosplayer in Cardiff.
It's true. True fact. UK-wide law, actually. Believe it or not. We don't welcome cosplayers in this country. You'd have to be British to, get it. So it's a very satisfying scene for us to watch.
We brought up the end of time so much already today. Am I the only one who couldn't help but think that, like, Owen's death scene is literally just the 10th Doctor's death scene? Like, down to the throws a great big tantrum over it. Like, he goes into a reactor to save someone else who's stuck in the reactor, and there's no way out, so he's going to get flooded with radiation, with someone close to him and throwing a big tantrum about how, like, I don't deserve this, this is bad, and then finally he accepts it, and then they get radiated, and they die.
It's kind of stupid, though.
I do think Ten's death was better executed. I still kind of liked this. I mean, the way Owen died was very simple, performed well, and I liked the final scenes with him and Tosh, so I can't complain too much.
And I like that we don't do what we did with Donna and like what Russell and Moffat are so fond of doing, which is the prophecy thing. It's like there's no big build up to like Owen and Tosh are going to die. The episode isn't particularly about them until that happens. It's just, this is a dangerous job. Unfortunately, you get put in these situations, and now they're both gone, and it sucks.
The show doesn't lend itself to those kinds of dramatics, not the way that Doctor Who does. Like, the whole thing is that it's like a study in futility. The whole show is a study in futility. Like, what really can you do when you're put in those circumstances? In most cases, nothing. You die. Like, that's the whole show. In most cases, you can't do anything, so you're either really sad about it and then you die, or you're really sad about it and then you don't die.
Or you can be not sad and then you die, but that's much, much less common.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit funny, though, at the very end when they were watching the video of Tosh and they were all sad and stuff. It almost felt like they were really sad about Tosh's death, but everybody's like, hello.
Well,
Owen should have recorded a video.
That's why they do it, but it still feels like we're celebrating or remembering the memory of Tosh more than we are Owen.
You say that in jest, but genuinely, I do feel like just it's in character for Tosh to have one of those in a way that's not for Owen. Like, I don't think Owen is the kind of guy who would make that for himself.
I mean, Owen's already dead, so maybe the camera wouldn't even record him, like a vampire. I mean, it could be a legitimate explanation.
He can't even take selfies of himself anymore.
We had a whole trilogy of episodes about how much being a corpse is terrible for Owen. The big thing we didn't go into, can't take selfies anymore.
Clearly the worst part about it. Forget sex, forget eating, forget sleeping, the selfies.
But, like, I don't know, I only really have one big note about this episode, which is, like, my hot take, which is that I think End of Days is a better finale, and looking at it all together, I think series better run of episodes than series 2, which, not having actually watched this show before we started doing this and paying attention series by series, I feel like it's pretty unanimous amongst Torchwood fans that this is the better series. I don't share that opinion. I feel like series 1 was a more consistent, more character focused string of episodes than this was. And part of that is with this finale, I just mentioned it as a positive, how the episode isn't particularly about Owen and Tosh before they die. End of Days is an episode that is about the entire team, and this is Jack's episode and pretty much no one else's. And that kind of sucks a little bit once you set the precedent of this is a show about the ensemble, and our last series finale was an ensemble episode where everyone's arcs and everyone's emotions kind of came to a boiling point. But when we get to that scene in End of Days where everyone's turning on Jack, everyone's issues that have been building up upon all these episodes, everyone's pitted against each other, and it's the height of emotional intensity. And we don't really have the equivalent of anything like that here. It's very procedural. It's Jack has all of this stuff going on and everyone else is just kind of cleaning up the mess that John left for them. And it's okay, that's fine, but it feels a little bit less impactful than if this were a story about everyone. That's how I felt about it.
I understand what you're saying, actually. It's just that I just didn't feel the character arcs in Series 1 worked for me.
And this is the thing that I just mentioned in my Spider-Man video. I'm the king of unpopular takes, especially related to Doctor Who and Torchwood. I don't know, because I can never tell. Sometimes, you will say things that I disagree with, but I don't actually know enough about the majority opinion to know which one of us is more popular. I feel relative to Doctor Who and Torchwood, your opinions are generally the more popular ones.
I'm not sure.
We have a whole backlog of dozens upon dozens of videos at this point. of like me having the unpopular opinion on episodes. I'm the one who just stuck up for Daleks in Manhattan of all episodes. Like, I'm the guy who will usually go to bat for Chris Chibnall episodes. I think it's safe to say that my opinions on Doctor Who are not the most popular things in the world. Torchwood Series 2 wasn't bad. First Series 1.
Just going to say, I think Series 1 is pretty terrible with a few really good episodes. This is slightly better with a few good episodes. I don't know. I mean, I do think it's better. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but I think Series 1 is worse. They're basically a series of, they got a few good episodes I could sit down and watch for fun, but most of it is just kind of dry and doesn't click with me, and most of it is because I don't like most of the characters on the show.
I was gonna say, like, the fact that this happens to be, I guess, Jack's episode doesn't make a difference to me, just because going into the show, I came off Doctor Who to watch this, and so I already knew who Jack was, and everyone else in the show was already tangential. Like, I was watching the show for Jack and Torchwood, and anyone else who happened to be in Torchwood was just like, okay. And then all of them kind of turned out to just be okay anyway, so it didn't make a difference to me.
Even though, as we make reference to in this episode, Tosh actually premiered on Doctor Who before Jack showed up.
I do like the explanation, actually, that Owen was supposed to be in that episode, but he got hungover, so Tosh had to impersonate a medic to replace him. But it was in Aliens of London, wasn't it? With the space pig.
I didn't bring this up when Eden mentioned it in Journey's End when the doctor asked Gwen, hey, do you have any old Cardiff ancestry? I didn't care too much for that moment, and not just because I don't go back to that episode in Series 1 a lot. It felt very surface-level fan service-y. Like, no part of that episode is served by that discussion. It's just, if you remember this episode from Series 1 where this actress showed up, it's a cool thing. The discussion with Tosh and Owen where it's like, oh, you were hungover, I had to do your job. It is also a callback to an episode in Series 1. It's about those characters and the relationship that they've had. Before we even met these two, they had this kind of weird dynamic that we've got to watch grow and come to a very different place by the time that they're both dead. And so that was actually a callback done well and serving like the story that it's in. So I like that.
I feel like that's a lot of Torchwood for me. Like, honestly, I'm thinking back on it and I'm like, damn, I really watched this whole show. Please explain to me why I did that. Like, I'm going back through it now, I'm just like, wow, I honestly, like, if I was watching this present day, I would have dropped that maybe halfway through season 1, because season 1 was just dry enough that, like, without an ulterior motive going into the show, would not have done it.
See, the thing is, I got lucky when I caught this show when I was younger. I usually only caught the really good ones. Like, I didn't watch it consistently. I would just find it, and like I was like, oh, hey, this is Doctor Who related. I'll give it a shot. And it would usually be the better episodes, or the episodes that I like more would be the ones that I caught. I went into this knowing, like, even if I don't care as much for some early episode of the Series 1, there's some good stuff coming. I don't know. I can't say with confidence if I'd have stuck with this show, just coming onto it fresh. I can say that I'd have stuck with Children of Earth, which is what we are getting into immediately after this.
I was about to say that and Miracle Day are pretty much the only parts of this show that I can, like, really wholeheartedly mess with. Everything else is mostly lackluster.
I've always thought Miracle Day is pretty good. I don't know why people hate it. I think it's because it's just too long. It's 10 episodes. Maybe a bit too long, but I really, really enjoyed it when it first came out.
That was my favorite part of the show. Like, coming out of it, that part of the show really stuck with me more than anything else.
Is it because you're American? The other 3 series are just whales.
I genuinely think that's part of it. So we're going to get into Children of Earth, and like we should probably like do Children of Earth in tandem with the specials, because that will help counterbalance the fact that some of the specials are not very good. The American thing, because Miracle Day did move from the BBC to Stars. Like, I didn't finish that show when I most recently watched. I rewatched like the first 2 or 3 episodes a couple of months back. You can feel the change from like a show by the BBC to a show by like HBO. Like, Miracle Day feels like an HBO show in a way that nothing else Doctor Who does. It'll be really interesting when we get to that season and how very American it feels in the storytelling.
I remember Chris Chibnall actually doing an interview where he bashed Miracle Day and said Torchwood had lost its soul. I just remember laughing because when Chris Chibnall was writing Torchwood, we had like the sex monster and the bikini cyberwoman and transphobic jokes.
It's the soul that he was talking about.
I understand it, but it's just like this thing that makes me laugh because like Torchwood should go back to this.
You ever notice the people that do the most criticizing and always do the most like generic writing?
I did. We've fought about this already, so I'm just gonna leave that there. I can't wait to talk about Children of Earth and also Miracle Day.
Isn't this the episode we're reviewing? Are we reviewing Children of Earth and Miracle Day or Exit Wounds?
Fine, I guess.
We don't have much to say about this finale. It was a finale.
Mind-blowing thing that happened in this episode, actually, a big shocking revelation. They finally revealed the name of the creature from Love and Monsters. It is called a Hoix. So there you go.
Which it looks so much like a weevil that I'm honestly not sure why you even made them two separate species.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Exit Wounds was an episode that aired on the BBC. It had a running time of just over 45 minutes.
It had a villain that was made of wood.
It featured actors giving performances. The end.
And the guy who played Gray. He also just wandered onto the set, replaced the original actor, and that was that. Reese was a lot better in this episode than, well, the rest of it. He actually had a pretty nice moment with Gwen where he was like, you know, you motivated these people, you're a hero and stuff. And that was fun. You know what? Reese is all right. Let's forget the other 20 episodes where he isn't.
Talking about how Reese and Jack are literally just waiting for each other to screw up to like swoop in on Gwen.
Andy is too. I love quadrangle.
And with Andy, we basically drop it. So what was the point of even introducing it?
No, they have a thing in this episode where Andy clearly has this thinly veiled hatred for Reese.
The thing about all of her love interests are that they can't stand each other.
Wow, what a concept.
The thing is, for whatever reason, Jack likes Reese.
Like, there is nobody that Jack is like, well, this is my enemy. Like, no, you're my friend and I might have to stab you, but you're my friend. Jack likes everyone.
I'll stab you and then we'll make love afterwards.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Jack.
That's our Jack.
One more thing I want to say is actually a negative point. Was I the only who thought the whole camera gimmick with the Weevils was atrocious? I know this was like 2008. Well, whenever the Weevils come up, the camera basically goes in slow motion, like this.
Yeah.
The cameraman is drunk on something, like like moving the camera around in slow motion, like.
See, we watched this episode last week when we watched the other two-parter together. I did not rewatch Exit Wounds, so most of this episode has left my mind.
Go look at my notes. I made a thing about that.
I definitely did not copy your opinions. Just going through your notes. Like, I'll just say this before she gets a chance too, so I can take over the podcast.
Anyway, we'll get to everything eventually. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.